Andrew, Rayner has resigned from all three of her positions: Housing Secretary, Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. When the news of the stamp duty shortfall first broke earlier this week, you made quite a convincing argument that she should stay. What's changed?
Well, the argument I was making, and which, by the way, I'm not embarrassed about, was a political argument. In other words, I thought it would be disastrous, very, very bad, at least, for Keir Starmer and for the government to lose Angela Rayner for a whole series of reasons that I then explained. I think it is terrible for the government that she has gone. But at the same time, if you remember, I said that the whole thing hinged on whether Laurie Magnus, the independent reviewer on ministerial standards, concluded that she had been given bad legal advice, which was not her fault, and there was nothing she could have done about that, on the one hand, in which case she would have stayed, or that she had somehow failed to ask enough questions or give enough information to get the legal advice that came back, which is broadly speaking what he said. And so, in a sense, he has given a verdict we thought was possible. Once that verdict was given, which is that she had not lived up to the highest standards of ministerial responsibility, she absolutely had to go, because this government has gone on and on and on about the difference between them and the Tories in the old Boris Johnson era, who didn't abide by the ministerial code. When they broke it, just kept on going. They always said, Starmer and co, that they were going to be different. They were toughening the rules and they were going to live by the rules. Well, that's what happened. As has been said, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Well, it's interesting reading the full verdict from Laurie Magnus, because he does say that she acted with integrity, and points out that she was twice informed that the stamp duty situation was what she imagined it to be, but her failure was not heeding the recommendation to seek extra advice.
Yes.
And he calls it an unfortunate failure. So sort of making that point that she didn't deliberately do anything wrong, but at the same time, she failed to meet those extra high standards for ministerial life.
To put it very simply, he doesn't think she's a villain, but he does think that she should have taken more advice. I mean, she was told a couple of times, you should get more advice on this, and she didn't. It was complicated, and she didn't do it, and that's what's brought her down. Now, I don't think this interesting. If you look at the letters, you've read them all, I'm sure, from Keir Starmer to her and vice versa, and Laurie Magnus's letter as well. There is no rancour in any of this. There is no finger pointing or anger or suggestion of terrible misdemeanors. I don't think most people, if they look at it fairly, will conclude that Angela Rayner is in any sense a bad person. She's been a bit slipshod in a very, very difficult area of public life, and it's brought her down. But I think this shows, quotes, they're not all the same, This government is behaving more ruthlessly in terms of standards towards itself than previous Conservative guns have done.
Well, let's not forget that Boris Johnson was advised by his independent ethics advisor to sack Priti Patel and decided to ignore the advice entirely. As we've discussed on an earlier podcast, there was absolutely no way that Keir Starmer was going to do that. I want to come on to what comes next in a moment, but just having a look at those letters, as you say, I've got the Prime Minister's one in front of me, and it is handwritten, which is highly unusual, very personal. He says, "I'm very sad to be losing you." He calls her a trusted colleague and a true friend. And he also says that she has been the living embodiment of social mobility. What do you think her loss to the government and to Keir Starmer means?
I think it's enormous. First of all, she is a politician, unlike any other in the modern age, in that she has come from a very, very tough working class background, fought her way up, gone to the second highest office in the land. You could say the Chancellor is, but one of the highest offices in the land. And she has maintained her own authenticity, if you like. This is a government full of people who look a bit joyless and puritanical. Angela Rayner enjoys life and looks like she enjoys life. She sits on the beach with a vape. She has a glass in her hand. She bops. She loves music. And in that sense, she has been relatable. I'm talking about her as if she's dead. She's sitting at home, probably a bit hacked off, but she's still around. But she was able to cut through with lots of people, lots of communities who looked at the political world and thought that it looked alien and boring and tedious and in some sense repellent. And she cut through all of that and she spoke to them. So she is a genuine political loss to this government. Second, however, because she is, well, a bit to the left of Keir Starmer and has different views. Keir Starmer, I think, has used her, or his people have used her a little bit as a kind of human shield or warning. You may think I'm doing a bad job, but if it's not me, it's going to be Angela Rayner. You are absolutely sure that's what we want? Now that sort of weird form of protection has now gone.
Do you think she'll be back in politics at any point? Can you see a return for her after a
I
period in
do.
the wilderness?
I very much hope she comes back. I think she will come back. I think she'll serve some time in the wilderness and then she will come back and be widely applauded for it. She's somebody who, she can be very, very ferocious in her own language. You remember the Tory scum comments that caused so much offence earlier on.
Oh, you've just got some breaking news there, Andrew.
I have. There's been a rumour over the last 10, 15 minutes or so that Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is leaving the Home Office and is going to be replaced by Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, who is, I think, a bit to her right. And this, goes straight to the migration crisis and all of that. Now, I've texted, full disclosure, I've texted all the senior ministers I can. I've spoken to a couple of them, and I can't get absolutely full confirmation of it. But the messages that are coming through make it more likely at the moment than less likely.
So that's huge then. If we are reshuffling some of the great offices of state, this is a major reshuffle. We started the week with a mini reshuffle that was more sort of back office shake up. What do we know so far about the reshuffle and about what is trying to be achieved with it, I guess?
Well, again, this is all kind of we're in the afternoon of kind of rumors and whispers and text messages and WhatsApps and so forth. Very little of this is official, but I'm told that the chief whip, Mr. Campbell, is out. Perhaps no surprise there after the huge welfare revolt earlier on. I'm told that Ian Murray, the Scottish secretary, may be losing his job as well, and also Lucy Powell, the leader of the Commons, who got into some trouble, if you remember, talking about dog whistle politics and the rest of it. So those are the early rumours. But if it's true that Yvette's gone, and I can't confirm it at the moment, it's just a rumour, then that is an enormous moment because she has, busted a gut, worked incredibly hard. You could see the exhaustion in her face, trying to find ways to stop the boats, using, as it were, legal and relatively uncontroversial political levers. And so far, none of it has worked. And this suggests to me, if it's true, that they're going to take a much more aggressive and robust line on that, no doubt in response to reform.
Well, all of these changes are obviously being made by Keir Starmer and his team, but the role of deputy leader of the Labour Party isn't Keir Starmer's to offer. And there's going to be, we were talking a little bit about it on the podcast yesterday, there's going to be quite a divisive fight over that too, isn't there?
Well, if it happens, it's one of those areas which is very dangerous for Keir Starmer because he loses control. And if you can imagine, if we can fast forward to the notion of a deputy leadership campaign happening now, perhaps even as early as this year's conference, then you can see all of those subterranean conversations that have been going on in the Labour Party, the soft left saying, we're not really Labour, we're not true Labour, we need to be proper Labour, we need a wealth tax, we need to be championing workers' rights more, we need to be more generous on welfare. Those people taken on by the Blairites who say, no, actually the workers' rights programme is stifling employment. No, we can't possibly tax anymore. The country's had enough of tax. We have to really focus on the borders. There is that huge fissure inside the party. And I think it's Keir Starmer's failure that he hasn't found a way of, as it were, resolving or standing in the middle between those 2 points. But it's been underground, it's been sotto voce, it's been in the shadows, away from microphones and cameras. And in the context of a deputy leadership election, it would be full frontal. It would happen on the floor of the party conference. And old gits like me, who can vaguely remember Dennis Healey against Tony Blair, and who can certainly remember Neil Kinnock against Militant, will think this is rather nostalgic, but in a very bad way. That would be Keir Starmer losing control in a fairly fundamental way of his own machine. And I suspect very strongly he will bust a gut to use party rules, the National Executive Committee, the NEC, to stop that happening, to try to stifle certainly any early deputy leadership campaign. So it may not happen this year. He may try and delay it until next year. And there are even people in government who are saying that he might try to abolish the post altogether.